Hey everyone, welcome back to Genai Linux News. Let's kick things off with some massive kernel news. According to Fornix, the Linux 7.2 kernel has officially crossed a pretty mind-blowing milestone. It's now surpassed 43 million lines of code in the kernel tree. That's a lot of development happening over the past couple weeks since Linux 7.1 hit the shelves. Speaking of which, Linux 7.2 RC1 just dropped this week, which means the merge window is officially closed. Linus and the team are saying things look reasonably normal so far, which is always a good sign. Now the kernel heads into about 8 weeks of testing before the stable release, and when that lands, it's going to power the next generation of distros like Fedora 45 and Ubuntu 26.10. Pretty exciting stuff. Moving on to something really creative, there's a brand new Wayland compositor that just hit the scene, and it's got a pretty unique gimmick. Fornix is reporting that the newcomer is called Nourish, and it's powered by Vulkan for some serious graphics horsepower. Here's what makes it interesting. Unlike most traditional desktops with fixed workspaces, Nourish offers what they're calling infinite zooming and panning. Basically, you get an infinite workspace that lets you zoom in and out and move around in ways you've probably never experienced on a desktop before. It's still early days, but this kind of innovation in the Wayland compositor space is exactly what keeps the Linux desktop ecosystem so vibrant and experimental. Now let's talk about some distro news. According to Fornix, Mageia 10 ISOs are now available, and this is a pretty significant release for a distribution with real history. Mageia traces its roots back through Mandrake Linux all the way to the legendary Mandrake Linux. And if you were around in the late 90s and early 2000s, you know Mandrake was absolutely foundational to Linux on the desktop. Mageia has been the spiritual successor keeping that legacy alive, and they're continuing to push forward with new releases. If you've got nostalgia for those Mandrake days, or you've been a Mageia user, version 10 is ready to grab right now. Speaking of releases, Fornix is reporting that Arch Linux's Archinstall tool just got a shiny new 4.4 version ahead of the July ISO refresh. For those unfamiliar, Archinstall is the text-based installer that makes setting up Arch Linux way more convenient than it used to be. The big additions in this release: support for the Niri desktop environment and the Material Shell option. These are two exciting modern desktop choices that appeal to users who want something different from the typical GNOME or KDE setups. It's nice to see the Arch team expanding what's available right out of the installer. Over in the KDE camp, there's some important crash fixing going on. According to Fornix, KDE Plasma 6.7.2 is coming in July, and it's going to squash KWin's most notorious crash, the one that's been bugging users for way too long. But the really interesting part is looking ahead to Plasma 6.8, which is going all in on Wayland and dropping X11 support entirely. The team's also been squashing other bugs, like one that caused crashes when ejecting CDs. Yeah, they're still supporting that workflow. The Wayland-Only future for Plasma is a big deal and shows where the whole ecosystem is heading. And staying in the desktop space, System 76 Cosmic desktop environment has been cooking up their own system monitor, and according to Fornix, it's looking absolutely gorgeous. While GNOME 51 is working on their own system monitor replacement, the Cosmic team has been building something that really shows off what modern Linux UI design can look like. System monitors might seem like a boring utility, but when they're designed with care and attention to detail like Cosmic's new version, they become genuinely nice to look at while you're checking your system resources. Alright, here's something wonderfully nerdy. OMG. Ubuntu is reporting that a developer named Bali has done something wild. They've packaged the original GIMP 0.54 from 1996 into a Flatpak that actually runs on modern 64-bit Linux desktops with Wayland. That's right, you can now experience what the legendary FOSS image editor looked like 30 years ago, pre-GTK toolkit and all. This is apparently the earliest version of GIMP that still has its source code available to build. Now, this isn't official GIMP work. It's a community effort and still a work in progress, but it's an amazing way to experience computing history. Pretty cool stuff for anybody nostalgic about the early days of free and open source software. And finally, let's talk about creative tools. Fornix is reporting that Shotcut 26.6 just shipped, and this popular open-source video editor is leveling up with some serious new capabilities. We're talking about improved HDR support, which is increasingly important as more content creators work with high dynamic range video. Plus, Vulkan display support specifically for Linux. For video editors on Linux who've been looking for professional-grade tools with modern graphics acceleration, Shotcut's heading in a really promising direction.